Hi everybody, I'm Matt Valeri from ShirleyArts, and I'd like to talk to you about a beginner's course to video editing, sort of a video editing 101 type of video. Now, video editing is really great, especially nowadays, to sort of advance our artistic side with the advent of virtual productions and the popularity of virtual productions. And it's great in our personal lives also. You'd be very surprised with when you want to share a video with someone. If you just do a little video editing, how you can make a really nice video turn into a great video. So we're going to cover a couple of topics, sort of, like I said, a very base primer of video editing, just to sort of expose you to it and let you sort of see what's possible out there and hopefully excite you to learn a little bit more. So some of the topics we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about choosing an editor, we're going to talk about setting up the editor, we're going to talk about the parts of the editor, we're going to actually create a video. And everything I'm doing on the computer, you're going to be able to do with me, because all the parts will be able to be downloaded from a link in the description. So everything you see me doing, you can follow along with right at your home. And then we're going to talk about exporting the video. How do you actually put it all together and produce it? And then finally, we'll wrap it up with a conclusion. So, first topic, choosing a video editor. This is where a lot of people get lost because there's so many options out there. But the great thing is a lot of them are free. So it's not going to cost you anything to try. Just download it, check it out. So I'm going to put on the screen right now a couple of video editors that have dabbled with in the past. There's links to them right now. I'm not going to go over how you download it. I will just pop one up. And let's see, we are going to pop up OpenShot right here, and you'll see that you just go to openshot.org and you can just see you got either the download button up here or you got a download button over here. If you go to the top download button over here, it'll actually bring you down to the other versions that you can download for if you're not using Windows. So there are a lot of good ones. Look at that list that I put up. It has all the websites to them. How do you choose which one you want to use, though? Most video editors are the same. Really, they all have the same parts. I kind of equate it to what type of car do you want to drive. All the cars have wheels. They all have a way to steer them. They all have a way to change the gears. Now, some may be a manual and some may be an automatic. Some may be four-wheel drive, some may be two-wheel drive. And that's sort of the same with video editors. You'll notice that some video editors will sort of cater to one side, some will cater to this aspect a little bit more, and it's really about trying them out and finding the one that clicks with you for what you want to do. Of the list I have up, DaVinci Resolve 17 is a very, very in-depth video editor. It's great that it's free. You have a free version. It comes in free and a paid tier, but the free version is excellent. Almost professional quality. But that may be a little overkill for what you want to do. Maybe you want something a little simplistic. Something like OpenShot, which is what we're going to use here. This caters more to the casual user, sort of the beginner user. Still very functional, and you can do a lot of things with it, but it may not have every single aspect and every single detail that some of the other ones do. A middle of the road one that I like is Shotcut that I have on the list. I've used that a lot. So it's really whichever one that you connect with is really what I want to say, because every single one on those lists is going to be able to do 95% of everything else. So find the one that you connect with most, watch a review on it, say, yeah, I sort of understand that one, download it, give it a try. Like I said, they're free, it doesn't hurt. So we downloaded our video editor, and we're going to now talk about setting it up. So we're going to open Shotcut, and this is what you're going to see the first time you open Shotcut. Sort of a blank screen in front of you. And you're going to be like, now what do I do? Everything's blank. I don't even know where to start. Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set it up a little bit. A lot of the video editors now, you're able to actually customize how it looks. First thing I want to do when it first comes up, I believe this is what you're going to be seeing. It's the view is sort of the simplistic mode. If you go up to here with view, you can click that, go down to views, and right now we're in simple mode. First thing I like to do, put it in advanced mode. And you'll see all of a sudden we got more stuff in front of us. So all these different areas, and we're going to talk about what these areas are in a minute. All these pieces here are modular. You can move them wherever you want to set this up. So I am going to set this up the way that I like to view my screen. And what you can do is each one of these things, these areas are separate panes. And I'm going to just grab this pane, this video preview pane, and I'm going to try and move it over. I'm going to put it right, let's try it right there first. And then see if I can take this project file area, and put it right over here. So I moved things over a little bit, but still not quite how I want it to be. Not only is everything modular where you can move it, but you can resize things. You can sort of make things bigger or smaller. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, this area over here a little bit wider, and I'm going to move this up a little bit like this. Maybe take this a little bit over. And one last thing, I'm going to take this area and window and drop it down a little bit. Okay, so now we have the way that I like my screen set up. And you can move it, all these pieces all over the place. So now that we have our layout the way we want it to be, the good news is you leave it now, you come back, the layout's going to stay the same. Now let's talk about the pieces of the video editor, the parts of them. So we'll go starting over here to the right, where it says Project Files, this blank window here. This is also what's commonly called the bin. This is where we import our files to it. And there's two ways we can do it. Actually, there's three ways we can do it. We can go to File, Import Files right here, and it'll open up a window. We can go to this green button. It's a shortcut button. It's right there. That'll open up a window for us to bring it in. Or we can also just drag and drop them in. So just to show you what that's like, let me pull up my file. I highlighted them. I'm just going to drag them right into that bin, plop, and they come right on in. So then I can minimize this, and now we have the files that we are going to work with to create our video. And like I said, links to these files are going to be in the description, so you'll be able to follow along and do exactly what I'm doing. All right, right below it, we have sort of a two-section area. We have transitions and effects. Transitions is when you go between clips. Sometimes you can have a nice little fade, or you can have a shaped fade, a star, sometimes going in and out, or a circle. And effects are different things you can have, like, let me make this a little bigger so we can see them. Brightness, blurring, color shifting, you can change things negative, sort of like filters, you know, basically is what they are. They call them effects, but they're really filters. I don't use them a lot, which is why I usually have it down more. There's only really one that I typically use out of here, and that is the crop. It's just the easier way to use it from here. So I usually bring this down a little bit. That way I have my bin larger, because the bin is what I'm going to use more, especially when you have a lot of files. We're not going to be doing something complicated here. Very easy, so we don't have that many files. Okay, to the left, this area that we moved over, this is our video preview. As we're working, this is what we're going to be seeing. This is where the image is going to be produced up here. Below it, we have our track areas. And OpenShot does things a little bit differently. They preload 5 for you, but OpenShot doesn't differentiate like some of the other programs do. Some of the other programs may load 3 video tracks and 2 audio tracks. OpenShot just calls everything as tracks. It doesn't matter if it's audio or video. Some may like the organization a little bit better of having it listed. Some may like the freedom. So that's kind of good. You actually have the freedom. If you want to, and this is a way to do it, notice right here there's a little arrow. Click this, and we have some options. And one, we can rename the track, and we can rename this track audio. So if you want to have your audio separate, bang, now we have a track that's called audio. So we have flexibility here. So in the beginning, you may not need 5 tracks. It's nice to have extra, but it's taking up a lot of sort of screen real estate if you have a smaller monitor. You can use this little arrow and just come down to remove track. And now we can bring it down to 4 tracks, and maybe we want to make our other areas a little bit bigger. So we have flexibility, and if we ever wanted to add a track, same thing, bring that little arrow down, click add track, and we can add track above or below this one. So that's our track area, and when we create the movie, you'll see how we're going to be putting our clips onto it. And the last section is this property area that doesn't have anything, because this is going to talk about the properties of the clips we're going to use. So now's the fun stuff. Now that we talked about the parts, we're going to actually create something. And I'm the type of person, I like to see what we're going to create before we make it when I'm watching a tutorial. That way I can sort of understand when the person's putting the pieces together, how they apply to the finished product. So we're going to pause right now, and we're just going to play, sort of go forward, jump forward in time, look at what we created, and then we'll come back in time, and then we'll actually do the creation. So let's jump forward right now, and let's see what we created. Okay, now that we watched that, not bad. It's just a quick little video of some drone footage that I was shooting earlier. So now we're actually going to put the pieces together and see how that was made. So we already took the first step. We already brought in our clips that we're going to use, our pieces. So now we need to put it onto our tracks. Now, it is important that you know, sort of understand the order of the tracks. Just like layers of photographs, if you think of photographs on top of each other, a piece of paper is on top of each other, the top one is what you're going to see. It covers everything below it. So anything on the top track up here and top by its location, and also the higher number, as you can see here, anything on the top track is going to cover over on top of something on the bottom one. So for example, if I take this flight clip 1, and I bring that down and I just dragged it and dropped it right on, and all of a sudden you saw all our properties came on. It's going to now, if I take another one, we'll just say flight clip 2, you're not going to see anything because flight clip 1 is on top. If I drag it down to right below that, all of a sudden, boom, flight clip 2 shows because it's higher than flight clip 1. Now there is a way we can actually see both of them, and notice the changes we always have to do is when it's highlighted. So if I click each of them, it's highlighted. That tells me that I'm working on that clip. If we go on our property value, we see the first one's called alpha. Alpha is just another way to say transparency. It's at 1.0 or 100%. So this is telling me that this clip is fully opaque. 100% is opaque, 0 is fully transparent. So to change a property, you can just double click on it, and let's change it to 0.5 or 50%. Now you can see it's starting to become a little transparent, and you can start seeing one of the ones underneath it. Here's another cool thing about OpenShot. Most of these here are on sliders, so you can actually drag it and change it. Oops, I'm changing the one below it now. Let's go back. So you can see it's up, fully opaque, and fully transparent. So that's what alpha does, and that's how you can sort of layer things to get different effects. All right, so I'm just going to right-click on it and press Remove Clip, because I don't want that clip, and it brought them both away because they were both highlighted. Now, if you ever make a mistake, don't worry, we have an undo button right up here. Bloop, bloop. You can just hit that undo button, and it'll come back one at a time, hit undo button, and the other one comes back. So I'm just going to make sure I highlight the one that I want to remove, right-click on it, and press Remove Clip, and that clip goes away. So we're going to start with our first clip. And this can be moved to different tracks, and we can move it along a track. So we can put a different position. Up here we have our timeline and our playhead. So if we press play here, you'll notice our playhead starts to move. And this shows us where along that clip that we are. So I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to use this button here to go back to the beginning of the clip. You can go to the beginning of the clip or the end of the clip that you have highlighted. Some of the other buttons here is you can press this to add another track. It's a quick way to do it. This, is a snapping tool, so when we put multiple clips together, this will have them sort of like a magnet, boom, linked to each other. I can show you this by bringing one down here, and I notice as I come up to it, it kind of boom, snaps right to it. Boom, snaps to it like a magnet, which is great when you're lining things up, but sometimes you don't, so you would just turn that off, and now you can put it as close as you want freehand. So it's going to go turn that back on, remove that clip again. And here we also have areas where we can actually zoom in this timeline and make it a little bit zoomed in, so we can do more detailed fine work. So I'm just going to bring that out a little bit. All right, so I'm going to actually drop this down So we have our flight clip 1. Now we're going to do something, we're going to bring other stuff in because we have other clips that we want to use. And this is when we're going to start layering and start moving stuff around. So I'm going to bring in another clip down here called Screencast. I'm going to bring this down and notice, because I have the that magnet tool on, it kind of locks to the one above and even creates a nice little reference line. I'm going to bring flight clip 2, put that right behind flight clip 1, and you'll see why we have these broken down. But I want to show you something. As we zoom in, notice it left a little space in there. Now, a lot of times this isn't going to be noticeable to the eye, but this is when you do your detail work. You can see that space gets a little bit bigger. And we can actually, by zooming in, we can remove that little space. And then which one are we missing? Oh yes, we are missing the one they called me. And we're going to put this, and we're going to have this line up with the others. And all these should be nice and lined up now. There we go. All right, so we can move our playhead, which is now all the way back here. We want to just click on here and we can put this in. And there's a picture of me. Not a very good camera, not a very good shot. It was an old camera I happen to have lying around just to set up to do this. But we can't see anything else. So we're going to do some playing around. I have set these all up wrong. I am going to put the screencast on top. This is the screen that you actually see of the phone. Me and that, because this is going to help me just as I set it up now. Alright, so now that I have my tracks set up, the videos where I want them, I have the screencast on the top, I have me sort of on that track 3, and the flight clip on track 2. I want to adjust how they look now and sort of move them around and change the scale and the size so I can see all of them. So this is what we're going to do. So we want to make sure that whatever clip we're working on is highlighted. We want to make sure it has that red border around it, because even though we're looking at this one up here, which is the screencast, the top clip, if we have flight clip 2 highlighted, any change we make in the properties is going to affect that flight clip 2. So we want to make sure that we have our correct clip highlighted that we're working on. Also our playhead. Wherever this playhead is where that change is going to happen. So I don't want to make a change with the playhead over here unless I want the change to happen right at that point. Here I want this resizing I'm going to do to happen right at the beginning. So I'm going to, instead of trying to line it up right at the beginning, I'm just going to use that button right there, and it brings it, snaps it right to the beginning. Alright, so we are going to change our scale. So we're going to make sure we have our clip highlighted. We're changing it to 0.25, and you'll notice it squished it in. But don't worry yet, once we change the Y, 0.25, boom, now it's at the same scale. Actually, you know what? That's a little bit too small. Let's bump that up to 0.5 and Y 0.5. All right, now we're going to want to move it, and we want to bring it down to a corner over here, and we'll see how that looks. Now, there are different ways you can do it. You can actually do it with your location, which is right here, and I'll drag the slider so you can see, and we can move it right down there, and we drag the slider and we can move it down to there. You know what, that's still a little bigger than what I want it to be, so let's see, maybe 0.25 was perfect. Let's try that again. 0.25. I like it a little bigger. Oops, wrong one. 0.35. Yeah, that might be perfect. 0.35. Perfect. All right, now let's just adjust our location. I want it right down in that corner. So I'm going to try to put that edge right on there. And I'm using my slider to bring it right on down. Close enough. All right, so we moved one part of our video down. Now I'm going to move the other part of the video. Now I'm brought it and I clicked on the me clip for me. So I kind of like the size, but I don't need this whole video. So here's one of the times when I use something from this effects area. And I'm going to just drag it down to crop. Now, if I just hold it and drag it right on down, boom. Notice this little C pops up and automatically installs a little crop. If I click on that C right there, it brings up another property. You notice it already put in 10. So it's already starting to make some adjustments. And just like before, you can either use the slider or you can put in the number here. So I'm actually, I always like to bring things back to 0 so I can see things as they were. And then I'll make my changes from there. So we're going to use two different tools. We're going to crop and we're going to change the location. Now here's another way you can change the location of it, the position of it. If you right click on it, you'll notice something comes up called transform. And if you click on that, notice you can do a couple of things. You can drag the sides to make it smaller, or you can hold this button in the middle and you can actually move it. Like I said, OpenShot sort of gives you a variety of ways to do things, and they try and make it a little simpler. So instead of using the properties, sometimes they have areas where you can sort of work it with the side. And I just want me, and I'm going to line me up right over that middle. And that's about perfect right there. So I'm lined up over the middle. I don't have to worry about the part that's over here because it's outside the image. The only thing you're going to see is what is in this preview pane. So we are going to use that crop control now to sort of adjust these edges. So the left side, let's bring this in so it lines up with that bottom clip as close as we can. That's pretty darn close. Let's try and maybe fine tune it with 0.24. Oop, that's definitely not. So we are going to move it as close as we can. That's about as close as we're going to be able to do that one. And we need to get this bottom up to match it. We still see a little bit of right down here. So bottom. We're going to bring that right on down. So it's not quite perfect, but it's pretty good for this. So we have the shot from the camera, from my phone over here, what I'm looking at, the shot of me, because, you know, we're all actors, we want to be the stars, and what we're going to see here. So now I'm going to sort of recenter this, and we'll take a look. So I'm going to make sure I click onto that clip down now. Make sure I'm at the beginning of it. And I always go to the beginning by going to the end and then going to the beginning. It's just a habit I've gone into. And we are going to use that transform tool. So right click on it and then select transform. And I'm going to move the image so it's more centered there. And like I said, there's multiple ways you can do this. And notice as I'm moving this image, you're also seeing the location change. So it's changing the property there. All right. So now we have all these things together. And you know what? I noticed I'm a little low up here. I can see a little top. I'm not perfectly lined up. And there we go. And I should see Y, because I still want this Y to be in the middle of the top and the bottom, but I just wanted that X location to be over a little bit. We're going to press play, and we're going to see what happens. So you notice things start happening, and we're actually seeing the video in real time. Now this isn't our video. If we just saved our project, it saves the project, but it's not saving the video yet. Now, sometimes these previews are a little choppy. It's the computer's processing a lot of information. Some things you can do to make it smoother, if you like, is make that screen a little bit smaller. Sometimes that helps out. But it just does happen to be a function of some of these video programs, especially when you get things like 8 or 9 clips. It's a lot of work for these computers to be doing. So if it's a little choppy, don't worry. When we actually render the video, it'll be perfect. So we have that going, and I believe I clipped these so they're pretty much right in line at the end. So I'm going to bring this out so we don't have to scroll quite as much. And alright, so we are going pretty good here. We have our clip in the beginning, we have our 3 lined up, and I just want to scroll to the end and see how it's looking at the end, because I hadn't, when it arrives back to me, and yep, it looks like it's pretty close to how I would like it there. Looks good, but it's kind of stale. There's not a lot of sound, there's nothing happening to it. So let's add some music. We have that audio track at the bottom that we've been keeping. So all we are going to do is we're going to drag it, and make sure we're back at the beginning using this slider here. Drag this audio and bring it on down. Now when we play from the beginning, we have some audio with it. And the music just changes it so much. Whether instead of just having a stale video, you're creating atmosphere with audio. Alright, so we have a couple of parts left that we need to do. First, we need to add in a title. And I usually like to make some changes at my title, and this is where I sometimes work backwards. Notice we have this transition here where we go from this one image, and all of a sudden, boom, everything pops up right there. And that's kind of jarring that happens. So we are actually going to add another track. So I'm going to add a track above, and we're going to put in a title right there, and we're going to use a title to make a transition there. So let me move my playhead just out of the way. And there's different ways you can do a title. A lot of these programs have a title maker inside it, and so does OpenShot. Right up here, you notice there's a button called Title, so you can press that, press Title, and we have a screen of all different presets titles. I'm going to use this one called Camera Border. We can put in a title, what our title is. So we're going to just put in Drone Flight. Something nice and easy. And we can change the text color, and we can change the background color. And I know, what do I want the background color to be? Let's see. I want the background color to be, let's make it you know what? Let's do this one. If we go to HTML, and you notice I can either pick colors here, I can drag on a color picker, or 169 AA6, I can put in my own, and that background just happens to be the one for ShirleyArts that we have for our logo color. So I'm going to put that in, hit save, and you'll notice it'll automatically put the title over here. Alright, so we have our title created, and notice it dropped it into the bin area for us. So we can just take this title now, and we're going to drop it right into track number 5. And I'm going to sort of position it so it's split halfway over between this two, between this one here for this flight clip 1 and here for screen this other area of videos. Now if we look at, we have it highlighted, if we look at the properties, we actually can see how long it is, and it's under here for end. This means it's 10 seconds long. Now 10 seconds is kind of a long time for a title. I would like mine to be about 5 seconds, so I'm just gonna click that and make it 5 seconds, and notice it makes it smaller. So then I'm going to readjust where it is, and we're going to now use this title as a transition from one video clip to these other video clips. So to do the transition, we are going to do a fade. Now there's a couple of ways we can do it. We saw before in the transitions we have a fade right up here. If I click transitions and then fade, I got to it. But we can also right click onto it, and we have a fade option. And we can do just fade the start of the clip, the end of the clip, or the entire clip. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the entire clip and fade in and out fast. So that's automatically going to make this clip now have a fade in and a fade out. So it will fade from this one. And if we play it, we'll be able to see. And here it comes. It's going to transition fade to our title. And then it's going to transition out of the title. And notice the other clips are there. So it did a nice transition for us. All right. So we just have a few things left. One thing I didn't do, which is a really bad habit, and I don't suggest you following this habit, is saving it right away. Normally when I start a video, I got a lot I'm thinking about here trying to teach it, but normally you always want to come up to File, Save Project As, and we're just going to save it as drone flight right here. Drone flight. And I'm going to hit save. So now we have our project saved. But remember, that file isn't the video. So we have just a few things we want to do left. We talked about that fade there for that title. But I also like to fade in and out of the video. So I'm going to go back to the first clip, which is this one over here. And there we go, right back to the beginning, and we want to fade in. Now, let's talk about why it's important where we have this, and talk about a concept that really confused me at first. Something called a keyframe. A keyframe is a point where something happens. So say I want to change the transparency. Before we talked about changing the transparency at the beginning, but say I want to change it right here. I want to change the transparency. And I can do that with the alpha. Notice where I have it here, the playhead, and I change the transparency. If I move that playhead, notice it put this little green tick mark right there. That's called a keyframe. And it's actually the frame at which the change happens, or the property becomes in effect. Now, because it was there, if we go forward, we'll notice that it stays the same, and then once we come up to that point, we're starting to get, boom, our transparency changes. And that has to do with how we are. We can have it do it linear, so it slowly goes to it, or we can have it, I go all the way back to changes, so constant. So as we go towards it, I'm just going to move towards it, it happens quicker. All right, but we don't want that there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on our property, and you'll see remove keyframe. I'll take it away, that green tick mark goes away. So keyframes is something that confused me a little bit at the beginning. It's just where a property takes effect, and you can either ramp to that property, or you can have a consistent and a change. Time you want to do consistent, and then a change is with a volume. If you have two people, and I've done this in our virtual productions, where one person is louder than the other person and you need to match the volumes, well, I would put a keyframe there and change the volume of that clip at that time. And then, so that way you have the person constant talking, and then I'll change the volume, boop, I'll drop the other person down, and then when we got to the back to the other person, I'll bump the volume back up. So that's when you want a constant, but there are other times that you want to do a slow transition of your property. All right, so finally we're just going to put some fades at the beginning here. So I'm going to right click, fade, start a clip, fade in fast. Notice the screen goes blank because it's right at the beginning. It's totally dark, and we can see that with our alpha. A fade just used transparency, so right now the clip is totally transparent. There's nothing there, and if I zoom in, you'll notice it automatically created that keyframe right there for us. So as I press play, boom, it starts to fade in, and at that point right here is when we become 100% visible. Now I'm also going to want to do that with my sound, my song. So I'm going to bring that to the beginning of it, of the sound clip, right click on it, and this one's going to be a little different. It's going to be volume. Volume, start a clip, fade in fast. And now if I move this out, we did the fade at the beginning, and we always like to fade out at the end. So I'm going to do my 3 clips here. We're going to do the same thing for all of them. Fade, end a clip, fade out fast. Go to the next one, right click, fade, end of clip, fade out fast. Next one, right click, fade, end the clip, fade out fast. Now here you'll notice this is that music. It's longer than the other ones. So the other clip. So we need to trim it down. So I'm just going to hit the sort of the end clip button until I get to the end of the clip. This gives me where everything's lined up. I'll highlight this one, and now I want to cut it. I want to slice it so it ends right there. I'm going to right click on it, and you'll notice we have a slice button, or slice option here. And we have some different choices. We can keep both sides of the clip. Maybe we want to take a clip, slice it, and then add something in the middle. Or I can keep the left side, or I can keep the right side of it. For this one, I want to keep the left side, because this is where all my videos are. Left side, and you'll notice it'll slice that right at that point where that playhead is. It'll slice it right there. So now my audio is lining up with my video end. And we want to fade out that audio, so right click, right click, volume, end a clip, fade out fast. So that's it. We have pretty much now put together our whole video, and we can sort of take an overview of it. Let me resize this a little bit so you can see all the tracks, and we can actually see our structure. Think of this part, these tracks, as the blueprint. Up here, our bin is the building materials. These are the blueprint, and this preview pane is what our product is going to look like. So we have all our clips, our sound clips, our video clips, and our images. And yes, you can do images. That's all this title is. It just created an image, so you can import pictures and put them in here. And we just sort of move them around, line them up, cut them as needed, change the size, and move the position. All right, so now that we did all that, we need to actually produce the video. So we are going to export it. Up here we have a little red, almost looks like a record button. And we're going to press that. And we have some choices. We could put in the file name, and it usually uploads it from the name of the project. It'll make a different type of file, so it could be the exactly same name. It will give us our location. Typically, this is where you uploaded your clips from. So it has it already in there. If not, you can click Browse here, and you can pick where you want it to go. If you want something different. And then we have some different things. We can have video profiles where we can change what we want our images, our video to be, whether it's in high quality, lower quality, the frames per second. I'm not really going to change it. Notice that when we are up here, it says right at the top left, sort of this is what the project is set to be. So generally you want to make sure that these match. That's more of an advanced topic I'm not going to go into. And our quality, do we want high, medium, or low quality? And then we just click export video. So we're going to click that, and you'll notice now it's actually, think of it as gluing everything together. Before we just dry fit it and we can move things around, now it's nailing and gluing everything together to create the video. So it's working, and depending on the size of your video and how complex your video is, how many transitions you have, how many tracks you're running, the length of it, this could take a few minutes or it can take almost an hour. So what's going on? We're going to jump back when it is done. So we'll see you in a few minutes, and we'll see what the final product is. Alrighty, thanks. Alright, so we coming back. Now that we see this 100% and our bar is green here, that means our video has been exported. It's been created. So, a little conclusion here. We're going to wrap things up and we're going to take a look to see how we did. We're just going to click done. If you want, now's a good time. And this OpenShot does periodically save, but it is, and notice it's grayed out here for save project right here because it has already auto saved. But every once in a while, especially if you make a couple of changes, it's always good to go back and save. So, but I'm just going to minimize it right now, and we're going to bring up our folder that has our projects. Now, one thing I do like to talk about is organization. I like to keep everything within a folder. This is the Video Editing 101 folder. These are all our clips here that we used. Even if you have it on another spot on your computer where you want to save it forever, your clips, I always like to bring these clips into my project folder because the way OpenShot works, at least for this one, I'm not sure if they all work the same, is the project is going to look for these clips in a certain spot. It doesn't just load it and then keep it within a project. It sort of loads a link to the clip. So if we work on the clips and then move it to another location, the project's going to be confused and it's not going to know where to look. So I always like to keep all my work self-contained in one folder. So right here we see our drone flight folder. Here is our drone flight video, droneflight.mp4. This is the one we made. So let's click on that and it's going to come up. Our music comes up. And we saw this before, so I'm not going to go throughout the whole thing. But I do want to take a look at different things. Just give it a quick scan to see how it turned out. Make sure it turned out okay. So we're just going to jump a little bit. And we should be getting to the point where we're going to be transitioning to the title. There it is. And transition out of the title. And to all of us, or all these videos here. And to the end, just to make sure that it's looking good coming down and everything's lined up. And I think that's not bad. I think that's pretty good. So I want to thank you for joining me. I've had a lot of fun doing this with you. I hope you've had a lot of fun learning about it. And I hope that you are now can see some of the tools that you have at hand and really sort of how simple it can be. Yes, there is some learning. You'll always be learning at the beginning. You're going to stumble, but you're going to experiment and you're going to create something. Maybe it's just putting a title screen at the beginning. Maybe it's just a video, slicing it, taking out a middle part and putting the other two together. Very basic stuff. But then you're going to be like, ooh, I want to add some music. I want to add some sound effects to overlay over this. Oh, it'd be awesome if I can sort of transition from this into that. So you're going to start thinking about different things that you can create, and I hope you have a lot of fun doing it. So thank you for joining me, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment area, and I'll definitely try and get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you from ShirleyArts. Have a wonderful day.